Hello, and welcome to Revive and Rise. I'm your host, Melody Parrish, and I want to thank you so much for joining us today. We have been talking about different kinds of trauma for many months now, and I wanted to take this month and talk about strategies and tips to help us to be able to deal with this trauma that we may be experiencing. Because when you're in the trauma, you don't know what to do or how to combat it. And so I wanted to take a moment and just talk about maybe some things that has helped me throughout my journey with the trauma. So when I had the brain injury, every lobe of my brain was damaged in some form. And my amygdala, which controls basically your fight or flight response, that was damaged, as well as the right side of my brain, the emotional regulation part, and the emotional recognition part. And this proved to be difficult because for 20 years, I wasn't really able to understand my emotions. And this started as when I was younger, for whatever reason, but I felt that my emotions were not important and, that they didn't matter. And with the accident, it just compounded that idea because of my deficits and the damage to my brain. And so when I experienced or developed the PTSD, they really intertwined, and that further compounded it. I was unable to understand my emotions, and most of the time when I was asked, what I was feeling or how I was feeling, I would just say, I don't know. I don't know. I'm fine. And the main reason for that was because I truly didn't know. My EMDR therapist first wanted me to understand my emotions and be able to identify them and then be able to regulate them by myself on my own. And so I think I've mentioned before, one thing that I did was write down my emotions so I could understand. Now, my therapist gave me what is called an emotional wheel, and it explains the way that emotions are connected. Like happiness is connected to confidence, and sadness is connected to insecurity. And so I was able to look through those emotions and, say the basic, I'm happy, or I'm sad, or I'm angry. And from that, I was able to determine the more complex emotions. And so then, once I did that, I was able to explain why or try to explain why. And all of this took time to develop. And it took an effort, it took work. And one thing that I found was when I paused and actually took the time or made the time, that I was able to do that. So what I would do is I would take part of my day and I would just go outside in nature somehow and just be by myself um, and walk around or just sit and just think, just open my mind, clear my mind. One thing that I developed during COVID was meditation, the ability to meditate. And that as well took a while to develop because your brain is constantly thinking. You're constantly thinking about different things, what you have to do for the day, what you're feeling, what you need to be thinking about. And so, you have to learn how to quiet your mind. And I started with 1 minute and then gradually got up to 30 minutes. And so this was very helpful to me just to get away and be able to sit with my emotions. When you stop for a moment and there's no distractions, you're able to think and you're able to dive deep within yourself to learn about yourself. And one thing I've discovered is that when you do that, you're able to learn more about why you do things you do, why you feel things you feel. So I would go out, I would get quiet, and then I would notice that I was able to recognize the emotions I was feeling. Then the next step was to determine why I was feeling that. And this led me to understand many things about myself. And one thing that it did teach me was that these emotions that are considered negative, that we don't really want to experience. Nobody wants to feel fearful. Nobody really wants to feel angry, or nobody wants to feel like they're not good enough. And I felt all of those things. But those quote unquote negative emotions actually teach us so many things about ourselves. And then if we think about where they came from, sometimes we don't know these things and sometimes we can't do these things. It takes practice. But if we love ourselves enough to do the work, then we'll understand about ourselves. And I think that's very important because through my journey, I've been able to do that. And one way that I do that is journaling and writing down these things. And by doing that, I'm just able to look at what I write. So I'll take 5 minutes and just write all these words and write whatever's in my mind. And then, not even thinking about it, just writing. And as I'm doing that, when I'm finished, I go back and read it. And then I'm able to understand a little bit what's going on in my mind and what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. And this is so important. It's an important thing to do. And there's so many other ways that you can do this. Writing is my thing, but you can do, I feel like any kind of art or any kind of expression of yourself, be it painting, drawing, sculpting, it can tell you so much about yourself and about what you're feeling. So I feel like that's the first step in helping ourselves to heal and beginning our healing journey. Now, it takes time. I certainly wasn't able to do this at first, and I wasn't really in the mental state to do it at first, but step by step, I was able to do it. And I think the thing is that we can't give up. Just continually do something. And I know I got so frustrated so many times, and my therapist was always like, you have to take one step at a time and give yourself grace. I am still working on that, the whole grace part. It's so easy to give other people grace, and to be understanding of other people and those kind of things. Think that things that apply to other people don't really apply to myself. But I need to learn, and I'm trying to learn that that's not true. And if I give the grace to myself that I would give to others, then I can move forward. And I feel like this can help with a lot of these emotions that we really don't want to feel. So the fear, the anger, the anxiety, I've developed a stronger anxiety. It was as though everything that I did feel and I did have became stronger. And what made it really tough was that I didn't realize that I even had these things. I didn't realize I had anxiety. I didn't realize, honestly, I didn't realize I even had fear. And I certainly didn't realize I had anger. And I feel like that was because I was trying to bury these things because I didn't want to feel them. But my therapist taught me that I have to experience these things instead of trying to bury them and forget about them. Because we have to learn from these things. And once she said that, and once she told me that, I was able to learn so much. And so I think that's the first thing that I can say, the first strategy I can give to people, and or the tips I can give to people, is to begin to pause, and to begin to listen to what's inside of you. We are our best resource. And I feel like for the majority of my life, I was what was standing in my way. I was the mountain that had to be moved. I was my thoughts and my beliefs about myself, the negative ones, that was what was standing in my way of becoming successful and happy and forming positive ideas about myself. And I'm still working on that. It's still very difficult for me. And I feel like that is a life journey. It's a lifelong journey to try and change the beliefs that we have about ourselves, the negative beliefs and ideas that we've come to believe and we've come to accept about ourselves. For example, not being good enough, being broken, those kind of ideas, they can get in your head and consume you, and you don't realize it. And that's the thing. I didn't realize. I realized it subconsciously, but I didn't realize it consciously. that I didn't feel good enough. And from that fear of not being good enough, what it drove me to do. And that added to things that made me make decisions that wasn't necessarily the best for me. And I feel like that these things just add to the traumas that we feel in life and the traumas that we experience in life. So I want to encourage you to start trying to meditate, trying to reconnect with yourself. We're so busy in this day and age doing this, doing that. We have to move forward. There's so much pressure. And we need to, in the midst of all these things, we need to just take a moment. Take a moment, no matter how short it is, and just be quiet and just stay in the quiet and just dive deep into ourselves. And if we start doing that, we'll be able to recognize more things about ourselves. And as we recognize that, those things, we'll be able to learn about ourselves more and help ourselves more. And I think that's so important because as we grow from these things, and as we grow from the things that we learn about ourselves, we're able to fix ourselves in a way and help us to start healing. So I want to thank you so much for listening today. And I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you that you do not have to suffer alone, that there are so many people at this moment that are experiencing these things and they don't understand about themselves. You're not alone in that. And you're not alone in the denial and the avoidance. But the more that we do those things, the more we avoid these quote unquote negative emotions and things that don't feel good and things that we just don't want to deal with. The more we do that, the more we're hurting ourselves because we're unable to begin to heal. And so I want to thank you so much for listening today. And I want to reiterate that you do not have to suffer alone. Thank you.